24/7.
Welcome back. You've got about hundreds of people here, about 80% men, unfortunately, and 20% women. But we will be talking to women much more to get reactions to this budget. But it's a big day and a good day for India for two reasons. One, a huge budget, a much anticipated budget. But actually, Shekhar Gupta was more interested in what the score is. And the score is 88 for 9, Shekhar, UAE. More interested? So good on all fronts. Let's get a quick overview from Mr. Bhargav, not just on auto, but generally on this budget. It is a budget that's really packed with projects, ideas, and it'll take time for everybody to understand the impact of each one. But it's really unusual to see so many things in one budget.
I agree that this budget, I think, is probably the most comprehensive kind of budget which at least I've come across for a long, long time. And the other positive part of this budget is that it sets out a clear roadmap on what is going to happen in key areas going forward over the next 5 years. And I think industry as a whole, for making investments or doing business, likes to have as stable and predictable an environment as is possible. So in that sense, I think this budget has done an excellent job of setting out what a budget should do. But the key to all of this is going to be how much and how soon is actually going to get translated into ground reality. Because historically, if you look back...
But that translation to ground reality, that's the issue.
There has always been a huge gap between what is said at the government level, at the political level, and what happens on the ground in Andhra Pradesh or West Bengal or someplace else. Because state government...
But doesn't this government sort of almost pride itself on being good at implementation?
They have certainly a much better record, at least Mr. Modi has a much better record of implementation in Gujarat than anywhere else. But the administrative machinery, the rest of the country, is not entirely under his control. And in Gujarat, it took several years, I think, for the administrative machinery to become as effective as it did. I don't think in Delhi you can expect that the administrative machinery and where people have come from different parts of the country
will react overnight.
Will react so fast because the whole system incentivizes people to play safe, not get into trouble.
Right.
And it's not result-oriented, it's procedure-oriented.
But at least now they have a chance. They have about 50 different ideas, 50 different concepts.
And I think if the government can also revamp the administrative machinery, incentivize people to perform, take away the disincentives to performance, and really reward people who do things rather than who write things, right. I think we'll get much further.
I think that's a good summary.
All right, we've got Mr. Adi Godrej, chairman of the Godrej Group, also with us. Mr. Godrej, we'll come to you in just a moment. I have to get two quick reactions. One, of course, is on the taxation front. That's the one thing we always watch out for in the budget. Mr. Rajiv Memani of Ernst & Young is with us. Mr. Memani, first to tell our viewers, what do they pay about mobile phone and other things, and of course, the overall taxation impact on the industry?
Yeah, no, I think overall, I think if I look at this, the tax, and to respond to tax without looking at the fine print is always a very dangerous exercise. But if I was to look at it, my understanding is that he didn't have much to, but he could. I think he is trying to give. And if you were to look at from a tax practitioner standpoint, if you were to look at 4 or 5 of the big issues that were impacting corporates, on a day-to-day basis, I think he's tried to address that. He's tried to tried to create some platforms where raising of capital could become easier. So whether it's through investment trusts, REIT, or alternative investment funds, I think that is positive. But whether REIT is comprehensive enough or no, I don't think it is, based on what he said. But when we look at the fine print, we'll come to know of that. He said DTT. So 99% of mobile phones are imported in India. So I think those kind of things are there. But overall, I would say, very positive in terms of addressing some of the key issues that corporates had.
Just bring in Adi Godrej here. Thanks very much for joining us, Mr. Godrej. Generally, the feeling we've got that this budget is replete with ideas, packed with ideas, projects, concepts. It's probably a more packed budget than than Mr. Bhargav, for instance, has ever seen. It's a question of implementation and on-the-ground reality. How do you think this budget is going to impact your business and growth and investment in your area?
I think there are some good features about this budget. I think generally it will help GDP growth. I think the high investment in the infrastructure sector, the steps they are taking in the social sector, the incentives they've given to consumers through the exemptions, they are all good provisions which I think will end up in a GDP growth in the next financial year, which is the higher side of that 8.5%. However, the manufacturing sector has fallen between two stools, because it's a very good announcement he made that in 4 years' time he wants to bring the corporate tax rate down to 25%. And he's also mentioned that he doesn't want exemptions to continue. So this time, neither have been there any incentives for manufacturing, which badly needs incentives at this stage for acceleration in manufacturing, and yet the corporate tax rate remains high. So I think, unfortunately, manufacturing this year has fallen between two stools.
But don't you feel that once you're told with certainty that next year corporate tax is going to start coming down, it helps your planning, it helps your decision making, so you can do things now which will have an impact next year?
Certainly, but it won't have an impact this year. Because if he had reduced excise duty, say, in certain sectors, it could have given a boost to demand. So I'm saying generally GDP growth will be good, but the big incentive to manufacturing which we expected has not come. For example, the minimum alternate tax comes in the way of several investments in manufacturing, but nothing has been done about it. And from what I see, he wants to continue this ridiculous tax of minimum alternate tax. You can't have incentivization at one end and then a minimum alternate tax at the other. When it first started at 8%, it was not too bad, but it has been gradually raised to around 20%.
Right. But on the other hand, it was introduced because a lot of people making huge profits were paying zero tax. But you're saying 20% MAT is too high.
Yes, but you must remember that when you incentivize somebody, say, to put up a factory in Assam, he is incurring extra expenditure, extra overheads, extra freight, and that is why he invests in Assam. And he does that because he's been told he will pay less income tax, less excise duty, etc. Then from the other hand, over a period of time you take it away through minimum alternate tax, it doesn't work. That is why our growth rate suffered, because we didn't have a consistent tax policy. Now at least he's announced a consistent tax policy for the future, which I think is good, but he should stick to it. And I think he will.
Right, right. Important points there. Shweta?
Also, we've got Mr. Rakesh Bharti Mittal here. You just heard Mr. Godrej say that MAT was a bit of a disappointment. I know you wanted to talk a lot about the Make in India push and the agriculture sector. If we could quickly get your views there, sir.
I think, first of all, I would say that this was a very balanced and, more importantly, inclusive budget. And I would like to compliment the Finance Minister on this. I clearly see India getting back on the economic growth recovery path. And given what has been talked about today, clearly there are huge positives for various stakeholders across the country. To my mind, I think if I look at Make in India, the pre-existing regulatory mechanism he talked about, starting projects, I think that has been a great problem for the Indian corporate sector as a whole, because the projects just keep getting delayed in spite of we keep hearing of single windows and so on and so forth. I think if you put this mechanism in place and you can kickstart the project immediately and not wait for all the approvals is a huge positive. Reduction of corporate tax, while I would have welcomed to have started this year itself, but I think the roadmap which he has laid clearly brings in a lot of process simplification and more importantly the uncertainty of DTC which has gone away. Clearly on the manufacturing side, while the companies were uncompetitive of imposition of SAD which has been removed, I think I see a huge positive on that. And I think for any finance minister to raise resources, control expenditure, control inflation is a big task. And when I talk of inclusive India, I think the universal social security system which he talked about is a huge positive. If I look at people below the poverty line, pension scheme, something for the senior citizens, and I believe that this will be a huge positive for the people who matter the most and who need the most, more importantly. On the agriculture side, he talked about a national unified agriculture marketing policy. I need to see the details, but I believe this will give benefit and freedom to the farmers to go and sell their produce, reduce wastages, will help in controlling inflation, and more importantly, the consumer.
Basically, all sectors are.
Yeah, the only one thing which I would say on while he gave 100% reduction on the Swachh Bharat Kosh and Clean Ganga corporate donations, he did mention about a cess on Swachh Bharat, and I believe once you are asking the corporate sector to spend 2% on CSR funds, this will be an additional. It will be an additional burden.
He did mention there that it's something he may do. He's not.
Yeah, but I also believe this was the last event, and this is now going to be converted into getting more investments, and more importantly, the National Skills Mission, which will ensure rural job creation as well as in the urban areas.
So as you can see, Dr. Roy, corporate India not too excited about that cess on Swachh Bharat that he mentioned.
Exactly. Now, Shweta, let's talk about two opposites. I've got the hard-nosed stock market here, and we've got Harsh Mandar, the creative, so the left side of the brain, and the creative social activists, right-hand side of the brain. Let's see how they react differently to this budget.
Right.
First reactions, and should people buy or sell now?
The budget brought the positive proposals for the stockbrokers, for the stock investors too. So one of the positive I see from the budget is the merger of the FMC and SEBI, Forward Market Commission and Securities and Exchange Board of India.
Yes.
So it will bring the regulations governing commodity futures and currency derivatives under one body. Moreover, it has its own inherent advantages. For that, it will reduce the costs for the companies. They need not need different setups for meeting regulations. So that is broadly the point about the stockbrokers, what stockbrokers feel about this budget.
Right. So you haven't told me, are you telling the viewers buy or sell?
So a statement regarding this would be, I would say a diplomatic one. I would say hold and probably buy in the longer term.
Right. Hold and probably buy in the longer term. Right. Very diplomatic. Buy or sell?
So it's buy.
Buy. Buy or sell?
Hold.
Hold?
Yeah. Hold.
Hold?
I would like to say, the finance minister had mentioned about the FEMA Act, the Section 6 of FEMA,
right,
which is very important, and the amendment would create a kind of equity inflow from FIs. So that would, I would like to say that it is a buy now.
Buy.
I would like to say buy, but one issue that has been bothering for some time has been that financial inclusion has been going on. But a prerequisite for financial inclusion was financial literacy. And people are being given overdrafts and they are not aware about...
Sorry, I just have to interrupt. The finance minister is speaking right now. Let's hear what he has to say. Sorry, we'll come back to you.
The states were getting 32% plus some extras. Now they get 42 plus 5, 47%. So every tax New Delhi collects, 47 goes to the states. So I'm straight away down by 10%. If you look at the all India picture, and we calculated, total national taxes, center and state, the states used to get 49, center still had 51. till last year. This year it is 62 in favor of the states. So the Indian states are financially more powerful, and I think this is a great development. It's a great development because they are the ones who are going to spend the money on the ground. They are not to be seen just paying salaries and come rushing to Delhi, give me more funds for simply sponsored schemes or otherwise. Now, how do I make up for the loss of revenue? The size of my cake has shot. Therefore, next year we have to grow faster. If we go on the projected growth rate of 8% plus, our revenue projection is about 15 to 16%. Last year's projection was overstated because 4.1 was a fiscal target set not by me but by Mr. Chidambaram, which I had adopted. Halfway through the year I couldn't change it. And therefore to reach 4.1, what is the amount required? There are only two ways you can meet the fiscal target. You either earn more or you spend less. Now we did a little of both. But this year is my year. And therefore I have to be transparent about every fact. Now if my revenues go up by 15.9 or some, as we are projecting with this growth rate, I make up for the shortfall in terms of the size of the center's cake by tax buoyancy. The second important factor is the other investment destinations, barring the United States, are not doing particularly well. And all competing economies are under stress themselves. And therefore the world can't drive on one engine. They'll need multiple engines. And everybody thinks it's India's chance to fly, if I may use the phrase from the Economist. And therefore there's a positive sentiment about us. Now what do we do in this positive sentiment? I can't suddenly increase expenditure this year. The one fact we have noticed it, despite a positive sentiment, a legitimate comment, on the ground is infrastructure moving. Look at the highways. The public-private partnership model is not working. We've inherited the highways back. Mr. Vajpayee left behind a sector which was going to boom. And we've got a very lethargic, underperforming sector. So everybody is agreeing that you have to put public investment. Now we've created a new model of this investment, which I think is, besides federalism, the second big point. I increase central spend on infrastructure by 70,000 crores. This will have its impact. I am now going to allow railways, highways and irrigation projects to raise money through tax-free bonds. And three, we've earmarked separate funds. I have just announced a contribution. PSUs will also contribute. We start with a 20,000 crore. Government or state institutions will contribute. Your capacity to leverage private funds, including international funds, is going to be several times over. We recently had a conference last month in Delhi where most of the fund managers, the biggest ones in the world, came and said, let the government put in money, we'll put in our bit. And they can put in about 90% of it. Now, this will become a major instrument for funding infrastructure. This is the second big idea. The third big idea, when you say, is it the Amartya Sen approach? Well, frankly, even though I want the economies to grow, I can't be unconcerned about the poor people. And growing economies must also be concerned with social spending. So we have not compromised on the social sectors. We maintained the spending. Plus, we had an emphasis on social your programs, which are social security programs. Now I would at best say, I don't want to overstate it, we've just started the idea. So between the middle classes and the weaker sections, there's a common thread.
Okay.
The middle classes entirely pay for themselves. So I have allowed them a 50,000 rupee annual deduction. Put your monies into the pension funds. So you pay less taxes. So by the time you are 60 years old, you'll have a huge corpus. And I'm told the NPS is giving an 11% return today. So the money is going to multiply several times. So even independently, NPS is a safe and a great investment. This money in turn will be used, the more it's spent, the more it's used for a national cause, infrastructure and various other investments. As far as weaker sections are concerned, we're only giving a glimpse. You pay 1 rupee a month, you get an accident insurance of 2 lakhs. You pay less than a rupee a day, 70 paisa a day, you get a life insurance of 2 lakhs. And you pay a nominal amount of about 250 rupees a month during your earning life. You get a 5,000 pension, inherited by your spouse, inherited by children. Children will get the coppers.
Yeah.
Now, this is partly contributory. Partly the government of India will give a budgetary support. I have said in the pension scheme will give an equal support for 5 years. And then I am also cleaning up the amounts which are unclaimed amounts lying in your PPF, which are the unclaimed amounts. And by legislation, they will be transferred for social sector programs for the aged people, senior citizens.
Okay.
That's the whole object.
Absolutely. So there are 3 big issues. Anil, would you like to take it further, especially on the fiscal devolution plan?
Yes, very clearly the shadow of the 14th Finance Commission is all over your budget. So like you rightly said, it is squeezed the cake has diminished for you. But implicit in it, in what the 14th Finance Commission said and what you have said in your budget speech, seems to be some kind of a new development ideology for this country. In terms of the resource sharing is now based on devolution, not on grants. There is a greater incentive in your budget to create entrepreneurs, to create people who can create their own jobs. So can you just elaborate a little bit on that?
You see, as far as devolution is concerned, I think discretions must end. And therefore, I will give to a particular state because it's a BJP state and somebody else is a Congress state I won't give money to. I think this is a story of the past. Both by the Finance Commission and by my budget, the non-NDA states are greater beneficiaries. Because on some developmental criteria or the need to spend more in them, the Prime Minister has said the eastern part of the country is less resource, is more resource but less affluent. Now we have to walk the talk. So we've had to give Andhra type concession to those areas, etc. The second is consistent with our philosophy of allowing manufacturing, professionalism, all this to grow. Each of our revenue proposals is directed in that direction. Now take a small project. Most Indians are the best fund managers globally. They manage funds and they shift to Singapore immediately and manage funds out of Singapore, because if the individual is in India, the whole fund will be taxed in India. Now, isn't there a need now to rationalize our law as far as that is concerned? The IT sector, technology coming in, isn't it desirable to give them some customs rebate? Manufacturing sector, last year I corrected them, inverted duty structure, input costs will go up, therefore we've corrected that aberration. As far as the point which Mr. Bhattacharya made on the middle classes, well, I must say that there is an attempt by us even last year and this year, that these are salaried people who pay income tax. They are the ones who struggle their entire life to save a little money. Do I or do I not put more money in their pocket? It increases spending, compelling them to save. Last year I said I increased by 50,000 rupees the housing loan deduction. I increased 80C savings by 50,000 rupees. Now it was considered time, healthcare for instance. Now people must be as a part of that.
All right, so has he done enough to make this an inclusive budget? Is there enough for the social sector as well? We of course got the perspective on the investors and the stock markets, but the social sector, hugely important. Is government always criticized for being too pro-industry?
You know, I think there's a certain logic that we've accepted as social common sense, that what is pro-corporate is also automatically pro-poor. And I think, you know, if you unpack that argument, it means that, you know, if the corporate sector is able to invest more, it will create more wealth, it will create more jobs, more growth. You see, we at the high growth years of 2004 to 2010, we saw during those years, the total number of jobs that were created were just 2 million. The total number of people added to the workforce was almost 56, 57 million. We are adding 1 million people every month to our workforce. So I don't think we have evidence to the fact that if the corporate sector is able to invest more, poor people will automatically benefit. I don't think there's any option to what people like Amartya Sen have been saying, which is, you know, public spending on we are trying to build our economic growth model on two unequal foundations. So without good quality education for all, without good quality health care, nutrition, I mean, those basics need to be...
And you feel that he's missed that opportunity in some ways in this budget, because there are others who are saying he's actually done a lot for the social sector in this budget and he's tried to make it all inclusive.
No, I mean, the pensions was something that I found very exciting. One has to look at the fine print, but certainly I think this is one of the first budgets which has talked about a universal pension. A couple of things like this, rural electrification sounds exciting. But overall, I don't think there's any way other than raising India's tax to GDP ratio. We have one of the lowest in the world. We have to have much more substantial spending. Healthcare, the government's contribution is about 0.3% of the GDP from the central government. That has to go up. I mean, ensuring, and it's not about health insurance, it's not about AIIMS, hospitals, it's about basic free primary health care for all people. Housing for all is a good slogan, but what about the migrant who comes in, social housing, basic things like this, agriculture, 60% of the workforce, just 5% of public investment, and that also is not for the rain-fed and small farmer. So I think that there's, not just this budget, I think a series of budgets in the past of which this carries it further. I think we need to question that basic public social common sense that growth in itself is going to address issues of the poor.
So that's a point being made there, Dr. Roy, by Harsh Pandar, that he's saying that not necessary to go with the assumption that this government particularly talks about, which is that if you are pro-growth, that will solve the problems of the country, which include poverty, healthcare, education. If I could quickly get a word from Mr. Mukesh Butani of BMR Advisors, because a large part of this budget has been in addressing some of those tax issues that have affected corporate India. Tax terrorism is a term that was used by the BJP government. Everyone in corporate India has said that we need a fair, non-adversarial, stable tax environment. Does this budget address that?
Shweta, let me just try and answer this question indirectly to you, because I've just got the finance bills. A very interesting figures are coming about. He's projecting a very, very reasonable overall gross tax collection increase of only 10%. This is unprecedented.
You're saying just 10%?
10%. So this in a way indirectly addresses your tax terrorism issue, because what happens, field officers are under pressure to collect more taxes than what taxpayers voluntarily pay. Personal tax only 12%. He's betting heavily on service tax, largely because he's increased the service tax from 12 to 14%. He's absolutely flat on customs duty. Interestingly, if you look at his overall fiscal document, the effective revenue deficit, he wants to take it up in 15-16. So we'll end this year at 1.8%. He wants to take it up to 2% because he has very limited room to maneuver, and then 1.5 and 0%. Similarly, the revenue deficit figures are also very benign. The gross tax revenue over a 3-year period is projected to increase only by 10.3, 10.5, 10.7%. I think this is the most conservative tax collection projections I've ever seen in the last decade, and I feel that this is going to put it is not going to put the pressure that it was otherwise putting on field officers, and this will give him...
So that tax hunger that we keep talking about, that's...
Well, if the growth picks up, and even if you look at the GDP figures without the leg up of 2% because of the revised GDP figures, even if you look at the original 6 to 6.5% growth rate in the next 2 years, he is bound to get a leg up on tax collection much beyond what he has estimated.
Projected. So, Dr. That's an interesting point that Mr. Butani has made there, that he's only talking about 10% increase in tax collections. It's a very conservative estimate, and the rest of the numbers are based on that. And that's something he'll actually easily achieve given the growth in the economy.
Very interesting. And then they don't have to take unusual measures to try and collect that tax and meet targets. So that's very unusual for a finance minister to go low on expectations, because on revenue expectations they tend to overestimate to make the budget deficit look smaller, projected budget deficit. Let's go back to our survey. This is a survey of people from various walks of life, selected sample across the country. So this is not from people who can just troll and put in their views if they're all motivated. And we asked them, just like we asked the stockbrokers here, is this a good time? First of all, 2 questions. One, will general prices go up after this budget, or will prices come under control? Almost 50% said this will not affect price. Prices will not go up. They will be under control. That's a huge relief for the average consumer. Only 36%, about one-third, just over one-third, say prices will go up. And 17% say it'll go down. So that's about 65% saying prices will either be under control or go down. And as stockbrokers, we ask, is this a good time to buy or sell? We saw this table said, I think 2 said hold, 2 said buy, and 2 said sell. So, you know, they're more confused than economists.
Totally pragmatic budget, so it's
So pragmatic budget, so you should. So this is what the overall sample of stockbrokers have said. Not just on prices. We want to, generally prices, they are bullish, that 73% said prices will be under control. But on the stock market, we have a question on, okay, let's stick with prices for a moment. These are salaried employees. They are more worried than others. 54% of salaried employees feel that prices will go up. And I think we had a bit of that reflection in what the homemakers were talking about earlier. But if we go to our question on to stockbrokers about, is this a good time to buy or sell? Let's see if our general sample reflects what these youngsters here have said. The overall view about stock markets, oh my God. Now that's a clear, so you know.
That is what the Sensex is showing.
This is what the Sensex is showing, and it's absolutely typical, perfect. Thank you for all your advice. Shweta.
So, Dr. Roy, as you can see, when it comes to stock markets, no one can tell the direction. 6 out of 10 times in the last budget, we've actually seen markets falling on budget day. We'll in fact pull it up because we've just got about an hour to go for stock markets to close. It's been a volatile session. We saw the markets opening positive, going into red, then green, and then back in red. So it's been in and out, but of course we did touch close to the lifetime highs. Quick, so that's the market for you there. Nifty is in the red, but about 22 points in the red. 88.23 is where we are, but we were above 8,900 earlier. Quick reaction from the political desk here. We've obviously got political reactions also lined up. Mr. Salim, Gaurav Gogoi, Sambit Patra. So very quick reaction to the budget.
It's good in speech, but not in words or deeds, as usual. Normally the left, we know how these people are trying to further this reform. So the corporate sector may be happy, but even those who expected a big bang budget, big ticket reforms, it's not going to come. But on the other hand, he talked about poverty alleviation, he talked about unemployment, he talked about growth, but he depended on that the money will be put to somewhere and then it will have a trickle-down effect. So it's not going to come. This formula has failed worldwide and in this country for 20 years. People have continued to wait. They will further wait because he's a very good orator and he made his speech and it's a good argument with the good arguments. But in positive terms, you'll find that there's an increase in the indirect tax, decrease in the direct tax. So whom you want to serve? Those minimal.
Who is the constituent is the question that is being asked. I know Mr. Prakash Javadekar, the Environment Minister, is also with us. I'll come to you, Mr. Javadekar, in just a bit. Before that, I could go to Gaurav Gogoi of the Congress to get a quick reaction.
See, I think we have to understand the impact of this budget very carefully. There seems to be a hype and optimism which is more manufactured than actually the ground reality. The ground reality is that our industrial production is slow. Our automobile manufacturing sectors are down. Our agricultural sector is not growing. Price rise is affecting people in the rural areas and small town areas. This budget does not emphasize enough on infrastructure investment in the Northeast. Act East policy is very close to the Prime Minister's heart, but when the mention of Act East policy came, it was not clear as to how the Northeast of India can be a bridge between rest of India and Southeast Asia as well. So I think the sentiment of this budget is very different from the ground reality as the stock market showed you.
Mr. Prakash Javadekar, if we could quickly come to you on that point, sir, being made by our political panelists here, that on one hand you've got a very upbeat, rosy picture which is being painted either in the economic survey or in the budget, 8% growth numbers, but on the ground the reality is very different. Things aren't all that rosy. There are too many thorns.
What Tarun says, I am not or what Gogoi says, I am not answering him. What I am telling is, what India has appreciated, 5 things about this budget. First, this is the first budget where the Indian economy has been managed well to have first time in independent India minus wholesale price index. Then you have only 5% inflation, retail. Then first time in the history, 2,50,000 crore of rupees have been given more to the states. It's enrichment and empowerment of states, which everybody must. The Prime Minister has actually kept his promise of cooperative federalism by such a huge devolution. No party in power does this, but we have done this. Third, more importantly, social security, universal social security. The pensionless country will now be pension-full country. All eligible elders will get pension through these innovative schemes. Some pension will be 5,000. Some will get accident benefit. Some will get other regular benefit, even with 1 rupee per month. So that's a huge thing. It's a complete universal social security for the first time after independent India. And first time very strong action against black money. It's a criminal proceedings also. Changes in laws, making even domestic black money use very difficult. It's a 5 basic items, and it's a very fine balance between fiscal discipline and growth. And it provides ease of doing the business for growth of employment. We are presenting a predictable policy regime for predictable tax regime. And that's what people wanted. So there will be inflows for India, domestic as well as from outside. And we will have more and more jobs. The whole budget is about poor, and the whole budget is about jobs and jobs. It's about farmers, it's about irrigation.
Right, sir. So one of the things you just mentioned is about attacking black money, and it's a very important political issue for you. But the voices here, generally industrialists and political observers have said, and tax analysts have said, that the kind of draconian powers you are thinking of could go back to tax terrorism, is something which you want to fight. How will you assure people here that if they are honest, that the tax department will not use these anti-black money laws to actually harass them? You won't have tax terrorism as a result of these black money laws.
I think the action against black money is already started. The Congress government, which was denying or not observing the Supreme Court order and delayed formation of SIT for 3 years, we formed it in first 3 days of forming the government. The first cabinet took that decision. And then onwards, we are continuously we have succeeded in getting information from Switzerland government, and now from world over, we have been successful to put that item in G20.
Sorry, not to interrupt. I just wanted to say that that's not really the question.
Yeah.
The question was, yes, of course, something has to be done to crack down on black money. But how will you ensure that this doesn't lead to tax bullying, terrorism by the income tax department if you give them too many powers?
No.
That's the general feeling that people are worried about here. How will you reassure people that it will not be unfairly used?
Got it. Because I could listen to your question properly first time, but now I got it. The issue is very clear. We don't want to reintroduce the Inspector Raj in any way. So what we are doing is compliance and putting up checks at a point of consumption. So we are not doing anything where you will be, somebody will knock the door and there will always be a fear complex. No, you comply the rules and regulations. These are the acts, these are the rules. You are safe and nothing should be worried. But if you are not doing that, then you should really be worried.
Right. I'll take a vote whether they are reassured by those comments. But I think at least somebody did have to say that there will be checks and balances, and that those who are honest will not be harassed. Is that what you're categorically saying?
Yes, that is definite. That is definite.
Right. Okay. Shweta, are people happy with that? Is that reassuring? Shekhar Gupta?
Mr. Gupta, you've just heard the comments there on black money coming from Mr. Prakash Javadekar. We'll also go across to Mr. Veerappa Moily, but does that satisfy you that it's not going to further lead to tax terrorism?
No, this is discretionary. Today, one government may decide not to use it, but once you put those laws on the book, somebody will misuse them. There is a track record in this country. So I think the whole idea was to reduce friction between the taxman and the honest taxpayer. I think this is basically, frankly, BJP has a bad conscience. They have a guilty conscience because they overpromised on black money. Somebody said 2.5 crores for every Indian, Baba Ramdev. Then they said 15 lakhs for every Indian. Then they said it was Chunavi Jumla. Now to get around Chunavi, see, this is the old lollipop politics, L-A-W-L-I-P-O-P. That when you don't have an answer to a problem, throw a law at you. And all these laws are bad laws. So this is a bad law being thrown at India and India's economy. This will be misused.
A bad law which will be misused, but they were under...
And I can tell you, when it is misused, maybe it will not be misused by this government. Maybe it will be misused by a future government. So BJP people will then say, but we never thought it would be misused like this. I remember a line that Mr. Pranab Mukherjee once spoke. Once they were loan waivers at a discussion which I was chairing. And he said, when we held loan melas, we never thought they will be loan waivers. Right? Because Congress held loan melas and then VP Singh carried out loan waivers. So once you bring in a bad law, also it becomes very difficult in India to get rid of a bad law. You're trying to deal with the Land Acquisition Act now.
All right, Doctor.
I don't think agrees. Shekhar Gupta is still worried, not reassured by your statement. That it's a bad law and it will be misused is what Shekhar Gupta is saying.
I heard Shekhar Gupta, and I can assure that, see, Indian Parliament is a vibrant parliament. When the law will be brought, all aspects will be discussed. So fears will be allayed. The provisions which can check the misuse and completely wiping out any possibility of misuse can be also ensured. So there is no scope for misuse. It's for use. And the use is that, and for that Shekhar Gupta has no objection, that there should be no black money and it should not be in circulation.
Right. We'll wait for the law.
All right, we'll go across to Mr. Veerappa Moily to talk about that. Mr. Moily, if I could quickly come to you on the entire black money law, which is leading to very sharp reactions there coming in, both from political guests as well as from corporate India. Do you think at least it delivers on the intent, on the promise that this government had made to bring back black money?
I think the government has approached the black money question from a wrong end. Having promised that 15 lakhs will be in the bank account of every citizen of this country, they want to now escape from that. But this is not the escape route. But I must tell you that there is already a report from Dr. Parthsarth Shom, the most eminent the economist in the country. And he has given the reports, particularly on the question of the tax administrative. The report is called the Tax Administrative Reform Commission. He has given number of suggestions how governance process could be introduced in the income tax. I am telling you, if you accept those recommendations, and definitely the whole question of this, even the black money or whatever, the wage and everything can be tackled. And instead of approaching the whole question on the governance point of view, and where we had constituted this Parthsarth Shom report, and that could have been accepted, and that would have been honest enough to ensure that they are on business. But there are already provisions and several acts to tackle the black money, and we can once you should say that no, they are not adequate, they are not enough. That they don't say. But suddenly they say that we are going to bring a law on the black money. I don't think any, as I could recollect, no other country has brought out a standalone law to tackle the black money. Black money comes in various forms, formats and various channels. And by one single law strike, as rightly observed by some of our friends, that this will lead to a lot of harassment. I think this will be the, I must tell you that this is enough to create the panic and the fear atmosphere among all the investors and also the corporate sector. And it is not good.
Moily, I have to interrupt you at that point.
This will be a strongest instrument, very cruel, instrument for bringing tax terrorism.
Right, tax terrorism, but under the Congress, you were saying that Mr. Javadekar should be honest and people should be honest. Shouldn't you as the Congress party also be honest that under you black money flourished and grew and a lot of it went abroad and you just did nothing about it? Have they gone over the top, but you certainly did not do enough? Are you honest enough to admit that?
I am very sorry, you are not honest enough to present the honest things. That is most unfortunate on your part. And I can talk the hours together on this, what steps we have taken. And this is not, only during the Congress. Even Vajpayee time it was there. Even earlier was there. Nothing was done. But we have taken number of steps. And, it was there. Even SIT was, formulated by us. And, we have constituted it. And, of course, now to say that, I think people have very short memory with regard to the history of this country.
So you feel the Congress did enough to stop black money, is it?
Yeah.
Mr. Moily, do you feel, you are criticizing this law, but do you feel the Congress actually did enough to stop black money? Is that what you're saying?
What about?
I don't think he can hear us. Okay, Shweta, go ahead.
All right, I'm going to get a quick reaction from Atul Punj here, and also we've got Chanda Kochar with us. So we've also got an exclusive reaction from former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, which my colleague Sunil Prabhu has got. But first, a quick word from Atul Punj. Again, the infrastructure space, capital goods, something that has got a lot of focus there. Mr. Punj, do you think enough has been done which will make you spend and boost private investment?
Well, I think the money allocation is clearly there for the infrastructure space. How the dealing ministries are able to use that money and how issues like land acquisition will be dealt with, which will tell us whether we can actually roll out these projects or not, still has to be seen. So the money has been taken care of. I think the banking system also has to be looked at because right now the whole infrastructure sector has been broad brushed as being a don't look at it sector. So that has to become unclogged before we can really start seeing some serious movement in the space. The finance minister has done a good job of allocating more than enough resources. Do we have the ability to use that much resource in this period of time? Remains to be seen.
Right. Actually, Shweta, we have a first reaction from a former Prime Minister and a former Finance Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh. Let's hear what he had to say about this.
Mr. Jaitley is a very lucky finance minister in the sense that he has inherited an economy which is in reasonably good shape. Inflation is under control, not because of anything they've done, but because international prices of petroleum and other commodity prices have gone down. Current account deficit has improved for that very reason. Now I hope that the finance minister would use this lucky phase of his inheritance to give a real big boost to stabilize the economy, macroeconomic framework for fiscal policy needs to be strengthened. But what has been done? With all the nitpicking, the net tax revenues will increase only by 15,000 crores. What is 15,000 crores in a budget which runs into 15-16 lakh crores? Tomorrow, if anything happens to the oil price, we will have less cushion to deal with this. And I am therefore worried that there is not enough emphasis on fiscal consolidation and on macroeconomic stabilization. The other thing is, as the economic survey itself points out, there is a problem in agriculture. Agriculture has done extremely well under the UPA, but in the last 1 year, there are signs of stress and strain in the agricultural economy. Rural wage rates in real terms have gone down. Now the budget has nothing to do with to deal with this situation. 70% of our people live in rural areas. Their well-being has not received adequate attention. Of course, there is a lot of play with various funds being established, but we all know that there is one thing to pronounce intentions, it's another thing, it takes a long time to convert them into solid action program on the ground. My worry about the budget is that it has good intentions, but it does not have an adequate framework or the roadmap to ensure that those intentions are converted into concrete, practical realities, the answers on the ground.
Exclusive bite by Dr. Manmohan Singh to our correspondent Sunil Prabhu there in Parliament. He called the current finance minister a lucky finance minister. I guess in some ways his finance minister and he as a prime minister in the last year was unlucky because the growth rate then was 4.7%, but now it's been revised to 6.9%. A sea change in attitude and what the world would view as whether the economy is doing well or badly. Joining us now is Chanda Kochar of ICICI. Thank you very much, ma'am, for joining us. We've been talking about now a lot of the nitty-gritties of this budget, and it is full of nitty-gritties. It's replete with different ideas, different areas, different concepts. But getting back to the broader picture, growth-based budget, big budget reforms. Will industry will industry grow and bounce back? A lot of that bounce back will be due to banks, and you're in the driving seat. So is it going to cause a bounce back of the Indian economy?
Well, I think the budget does, empower India to actually go back to the growth path. If I were to just put it in, what steps can take us back to growth path, the first and foremost is that there is allocation of funds and there is an immediate investment that is being thought of from the public side. I think that's very important because till the time private sector investment comes about, it's the public sector that has to actually take the investment story forward. The second is, some of the longer term institutional framework definition that has been talked about. The whole plug and play model and the ability to extend that plug and play model to various other sectors, I think that can really create a very hugely enabling environment for investments to take place. The third is the entire theme of ease of doing business as it is resonating throughout. I think each of those steps that are being spoken about in ease of doing business, they are very important again for actually investment and growth to come back. The fourth is identifying, some of those ability to raise finances like tax-free bonds for various sectors. I think that's again very important. And I think also the fact that the entire tax clarification, the administration of tax clarification around it, actually enables the foreign investment funds to again play a larger part in the entire investment story in India.
What will the impact be on banks like yours? How will ICICI's bank lending policies and credit policies be different after this budget, or will it not change?
No, I think there are quite a few things that will actually help us change it to the positive. The first is if the entire PPP framework changes for the better, the plug and play model comes into play, I think that makes the projects much more bankable than they have been in the past. So I think that is one very important part. The second is the entire creation of that bankruptcy law and so on. I think that's again a large and a huge institutional framework change that can enable assets that are probably currently not being productively used. Those could be put to better productive use through enforcement of some of these laws. So clearly, I think it makes a whole lot of positive change towards banks' abilities also to fund infrastructure and growth.
So bottom line, you started, and probably the whole theme of what you're saying, it's an empowering budget, and it's now up to us, banks and industry, to actually deliver. Thanks very much, Chandra Kochar.
Clearly, I think it empowers every aspect of India to actually take growth forward.
Yeah, right. Thank you very much indeed. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, lots more hidden aspects of the budget that we haven't talked about. We'll come back to that just after this break.